And with that, we're ready.
Okay.
We are. Start?
Yep.
Okay. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, welcome everybody to the Blanc Township Planning Commission meeting for June 7th. We'll start out with roll call. Mr. Mansour.
Yes.
Ms. Coulter, Mr. Brown, Mr. Johnson, Mr. Bandersky, Mr. Yancho, Mr. Horsha, our planner Mark Lloyd, favorite member of the press, diligently hides in a corner, and public and petition. Thank you. First item on the agenda would be, or second item on the agenda would be to approval of the agenda. Does anybody have any changes, Mr. Lloyd?
None that I've been made aware of.
Anybody else? Motions in order?
So moved. Support.
Mr. Yancho. Motion by Mr. Yancho, second by Mr. Brown. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next is approval of the minutes, Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, I have reviewed the minutes as prepared and found them to be in order, and therefore make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes of May 3rd, 2018. Support?
Motion by Mr. Bandersky and support by Mr. Mansour. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we have public comment. Anyone in the public, this would be an opportunity for you to speak to anything that we don't have a public hearing on tonight, which would be the True Star Energy special land use. So if you're here for that, you will have an opportunity to speak. If you have any other topic you would like to talk to us about, now would be the time. Hearing none, I'll close public comment, and we will move on to correspondence. In your packets, folks, you have a, wow, here we go, medical marijuana update. Number 13, it's our lucky number, I guess.
There you go.
And planning and zoning news with the major economic trends in Michigan. That'll be a good one to read. And any other correspondence, Mr. Lloyd?
No, sir. None.
Okay. Old business, having none, we'll move to new business. Item number 7, special land use. Public hearing for special land use 18.002 and site plan review 1040 True Star Energy final site plan for the MTA site. We have a petitioner here tonight.
Mr. Chairman, could I just do a quick introduction of the project?
Sure.
Thank you. What you have before you tonight is a special land use, as you mentioned, for from True Star Energy to build a compressed natural gas vehicle fueling facility. It is on the MTA property that's on the southeast corner of Maple and Dort Highway. The plan that you have on the monitor screens shows that. I know we have a handful of folks in the audience here working in conjunction with this project. I should point out that we've got several agencies involved. We've got MTA, we've got consumers, and of course we've got True Star, who is the company who's proposing to install the equipment over on the site, working in conjunction with consumers. And of course, it's on the MTA site. This worked out pretty good because one of the things we discovered is MTA isn't done growing yet, which is nice. But also, they are stepping up their game in regards to some site improvements. They were going to do some site improvements anyway. This project came along, and so it just happened to work out great for everybody. From a timing standpoint, part of the project includes the installation of a drive aisle going out onto Maple Avenue. As I mentioned before, that is managed and regulated through the city of Burton, so all of the improvements associated with Maple Avenue are done through the city of Burton. The other site improvements include, of course, the 2.5 acres or so of space that they're intending to install the compressed natural gas fueling facility, which also includes a couple of areas for electric charging stations. So it's set up to try to do the things that our world seems to be turning towards, and that is sustainability and you know, greener development. This is doing a good job for that. I think one of the things that this really manages to accomplish is creating a much better circulation pattern for visitors, of course, but also for the buses. And I'm not going to explain all the details associated with MTA's reason for doing this, but some of that has to do with some grants they received, and I would hope that you guys will get some information on that. Maybe Corey or somebody can come up and let you know the details of that, because it is pretty impressive and it's a great situation, and we're fortunate to have this coming our way. These folks have done a great job of putting their project together, and I do think that it behooves us to point out some of the things, at least in your packet, that I hope you've seen, and I do have some things on the overhead if we need to look at them, but you've got some color photographs too of existing facilities, so that'll give you a good idea of what you can expect to see on the site. And what I mean by that is, let me just see, here's some photographs. I'll go through it quickly. Here's a good example of how many of them are around, and you can see there's not many. They're pretty far away from us, the nearest one, and so it's nice to have this area of the county and the region being serviced with this kind of facility. You can see down towards Detroit, they've got a few more, but where we're at out here, it's a little bit sparse, so it's nice to see this happening. We can start to service a greater range of clients and such, so we're pretty happy to see that. It's one of the things we're trying to accomplish here in our community, is being a premier community, and being able to have these kind of facilities are quite beneficial, especially given the fact that not many communities have them, at least not yet. So for us to get them, like I said, I think that's quite beneficial. Moving through the slides, this one here shows you some of the facilities, and the reason I really wanted to point this out, some of this looks a little bit stark, but if you look at the bottom right, you get the idea that it ends up looking, you know, kind of like a, you know, regular gas station. It's not much different, you know, that kind of appearance. You got canopies and the sign. But if you look at the photograph directly above that with the truck, and you can see the landscaping around that equipment area. And one of the things that we talked about and the applicant has responded to at the site plan review committee meeting was that fact, and that is they are adding 18 shrubs around their the equipment area to help screen that a little bit better. That was one of the things that came out of our meeting. You'll see that that's on your plans. So they've responded to that. They gave us the information that we asked for, as you can see here, giving us an idea of what kind of colors and what kind of appearance would we have and would we be looking at. Here's an idea generally of what you're going to see with regards to dispensers. Keep in mind this is all set back pretty far from the road, but this is the stuff you'll see when you're on site, you know, 10, 15 feet away from it. That's what it's going to look like. Pretty standard looking material. And then again, here's just another photograph, a little bigger one of what you can expect from a sign, and that's done not at the planning commission level, but also the canopies and stuff, that you get a sense of what they're intending to put up out there for that. The plans that I have here don't show all of what you've got. You've got a set of plans that also shows, you know, considerable landscaping being added to the area around the new parking area in that drive aisle. I did point out the fact that it is the site's in existence, been around for quite a while, but along that Dort Highway, there's room for more trees. And if you visited the site, you just have to kind of make up your own opinions. My opinion is it looks pretty good. There's a lot of trees and foliage out there. That it's not something that you have to do, but technically speaking, the ordinance says, you know, they could have, I think I pointed out 13 or 14 trees along Dort. I think they have 3. So, you know, if there's an opportunity here, and the commission believes that that would be beneficial from an aesthetic standpoint, it's an opportunity to put that down as a condition of approval. But I think it's been great to see, from my standpoint, the different organizations working together, because it just doesn't always work out. A lot of times these things get a little goofed up, but this group of people came together and they've done a pretty darn good job. So that's my presentation. I know you've got a group of folks here who might want to talk to you as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Petitioner, Anybody want to speak to the project and kind of give the planning commission an idea what's going on?
Started and then they can take over.
That'll be
Whatever.
perfect.
Whatever.
Just your name and address, sir.
My name is Ed Benning. My address 2212 Lily Court, Davison. I'm the General Manager, CEO of the Mass Transportation Authority. And we're really happy to be here tonight. We've been a long time getting here. In 2008 to 2010, our organization was affected by fuel price just like everyone in this room. And back then, we were utilizing 1.4 million gallons of diesel a year. Happy to say today that we're at 450,000 gallons of diesel a year. Our intention is to eliminate diesel out of our fleet. The viability of that and our ability to run our system is impacted by those, you know, the way the prices go, just like what we're seeing with gasoline here recently. But we initially started out, and this station is very unique in the Midwest. We have hydrogen, propane, compressed natural gas. We already have that at that property. We've been operating a hydrogen bus since 2011. We're the first in the Midwest. Today, we operate 160 propane vehicles. We have a small fleet of compressed natural gas, but our station was built it does not meet the needs we have today and in the future. We're very fortunate. We work extremely hard to bring in grant monies, and we were successful in that regard. We received the second largest grant award in the country. Only one that outpaced us was Alaska, if you can imagine that. And but we got $16 million, and so we will be receiving, over the next 18 months, we'll be receiving 33 new compressed natural gas vehicles. And so the station becomes extremely important. And as Mark mentioned, we have many things going on with that site. And I just want to take a minute to tell you what's happening is that our Dord Highway terminal at I-69 Dord Highway is not set up to store compressed natural gas vehicles. Our intention is to move our fixed route vehicles, which will be the compressed natural gas vehicles, to Grand Blanc. And so in the future, our drivers will report there and go out on their routes. At our Dord Highway facility, we'll have our small vehicles and some of our mid-sized vehicles that will be stored at that site. And so the Yoride facility that's there today will be moved to our Dord Highway terminal. And we are in the process of also buying a large building on Dord Highway, the former Superior Pontiac location, much about our new Rides Through Wellness program. We should have about 120 vehicles this time next year, providing 1,000 trips a day, taking people to medical appointments. So we have an awful lot going on, but it's been a great relationship working with consumers. We're fortunate that we were selected as one of 2 sites to have a natural gas station. It's going to benefit the MTA and other partners in the community. One of our partners today is Napa Hyde. That's located on Averill. They're right behind us on the Dord Highway location. They're right behind us at Averill, and they're doing all the conversions, and they're already buying some natural gas from us. And so we feel there'll be a number of other customers that will come in and utilize the station. And so our partnership has been extremely good with Grand Blanc Township. It's been great. And all along the way, we must continue to remind ourselves that we're very unique here in the Midwest because this station is unique to our industry, especially here in Michigan. And so we really appreciate this opportunity. It's going to make a world of difference to our operation. Many of the vehicles that operate there today are operating on regional routes today that are carrying as many 31,000 passengers a month, individuals going to jobs outside of Genesee County, bringing their money back here. And so we're using clean natural gas, great for the environment, great for our pocketbooks, great for operating the vehicles, and it's a real clean burn and we've had great success with propane. Hydrogen, we've learned a great deal, and I think there's a future in hydrogen. Maybe in the next 5 years, we may bring in some more hydrogen vehicles, but we're moving away from diesel, so I just want to give you a little background on what's taking place and what will happen at that site. And in the future, that will be all alternative fuel vehicles and the operation of those and the repair of those. And I've reached out to Kirk Steidel at MDOT, and I've asked Kirk to look for any funds that might allow us to do a test patch on Maple Road to try a new product in that area where we're going to be coming in on and off the road. There's some concern that it's not an all-weather road, so we have to address that. But it'd be a great place to test a new road product. So I'll stop there, see if you have any questions. If not, I'll get the real experts up here. I'm just the guy that tries to keep it all going.
I do have a question. What have you learned about your usage of hydrogen so far?
Well, hydrogen generally runs about twice as much per gallon, but we get double the mileage on it. It's very clean. It comes, the product that comes out of the tailpipe is hot water. It's so clean you could literally make a cup of coffee out of it. The vehicle is like a big golf cart. We've been extremely pleased with the vehicle. We're testing it for two things. One, its usage as a large bus on our routes, and also as these things go, they're now making cars with hydrogen, and that could be a possibility. I'm not quite sold on electric vehicles for our community, given our weather and some of the conditions we have, but hydrogen seems to work well year-round, and so far we're really pleased with what we're seeing.
I get one more question, if I may. From a CNG standpoint, the plan is to put in a dispensing unit for, in this case, Ed Brown driving up. Do we really have a population of private auto owners or truck owners that would use compressed natural gas now?
I think
Is this
that
something you're thinking for the future?
I think it's more futuristic. I think the individuals from consumers probably have a little better feel for that. What I will tell you, though, is that one of the local, I think Pepsi's one of the operators that comes through this area, and their vehicles are compressed natural gas, and they're looking for a station. And so I think we'll find others are now starting to look in that direction. Many of the waste haulers are now moving over to compressed natural gas. And so we're going to look at, all partners. I think once we're on that map, and they do have a map that you can go in and Google, and if you're on the freeway, you can come in off 108 here in Grand Blanc.
Do you have, for example, large fleets, I'm just going to say UPS and FedEx and things like that? Are they migrating to these cleaner fuels from what they have now, or are they already there and I'm not aware of it?
Some are migrating to it. Some have actually made that move.
So they would be potential customers of
Yes.
yours?
Yes.
Okay.
And, the school district right across the street from us, they have not moved into propane. But if they were to do that, we could work with them because we work with the ISD. We sell them propane at our various stations.
Okay.
And so, but I think the future will provide for it. It's interesting that today you can buy a car and the fuel cell's underneath the front seat. When we first got our first vehicle, the fuel cell was 5 feet wide, 3 feet deep. Now the next one that just came in is about 3 foot wide, and it's about like that. So it's much like our computers and things we've dealt with in the past,
The next will be
calculators.
postage stamp size.
That's it. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Now I'll let the real experts talk.
Appreciate it.
Kyle McCree, live here in the Township, 7325 Westminster Circle. Community Affairs Manager for Consumers Energy. I'm just going to kind of kick off our part. I will contest Mr. Benning's electric vehicle shot there. I'm on my second volt, so the battery works well in the winter. The air guard in the front, not so much. It's a little snowplow. I don't know if GM intended for that. This is a great project for us. We are terribly excited to be doing this project here in Grand Blanc Township. One thing I noticed as you look at the map of where the CNG facilities are at is our intersection of highways here, how important we are for not just transportation into Genesee County, but through Genesee County, and the desire to have more and more of that transport, which then would have more of the related activities from that transportation take place hopefully here in Genesee County. So this is very important. I actually drive past the site every day as I go to the service center in Flint. So I will be monitoring the construction day by day. We've got a great team here, and I want to have John Francie talk about the project more.
John Francie, One Energy Plaza, Jackson, Michigan. The station we're looking at here essentially is split into two halves, as was talked about before. So really one part is inside the fence, and that serves the MTA, and on that side there'll be two transit dispensers. So those will serve the buses. And basically they run in their own internal loop on the site, and they'll access the site through the Maple Ave driveway. On the other side of the fence, we have the Consumers Energy branded dispensers that'll be out there, and those will serve the public. There are some long-haul users that will be out there that would come from the highways, but those are pretty infrequent at this point in time. Like I said, when it gets on the map, that might become more frequent. With our other station in Livonia, we have seen in answer to your questions earlier that AT&T, UPS, Waste Management have all come in and started running their fleets on them because it's really tailored for users at that level. You have to run enough miles on the vehicle to make it pay off the upcharge to make the conversion. But once you run enough miles, the savings start to accrue considerably. So it's really well done for fleets like that. Additionally, there's the equipment enclosure on the site, so it's a large compressors and an air dryer and a meter stand. It is set up for future expansion, so it's set back a little further from the road than it would need to be, but if it really takes off, we have the ability there to add another island in the future if need be. Time will tell with that. There's also bypass lanes included for stacking areas as well as vehicles stack up. Really, most of the buses would probably go on off hours when they fuel. The consumer side would be all day long typically, just as vehicles flow in. Now, if you did get fleet users, we do find that they'll jack up in the morning, and the end of their runs is typically when they'll fuel up. Other than that, there'll be a small masonry enclosure that includes the electrical equipment and control equipment for the facility. Space for an emergency generator, should it be required. The power was lost and we still needed to run the equipment. We can pull a generator in and run it from there. The small parking areas on the north where there'll be area for the electrical charger for the vehicles. That'll charge 2 vehicles at this point. And then the area that's marked there is future paving. That depends on what happens with MDOT. We're in for our MDOT permit right now. Part of it is moving the driveway over and adding a deceleration lane. If that all gets approved as we expect it to, that future paving would not be needed. If it didn't, that driveway would be a strange configuration, and we'd be really just, that paving would be allow large vehicles to turn on site. So, not sure if there's any other questions.
Just if you would explain, because I know that when we did the conceptual plan, when you guys came in to see us, we talked about public coming up and not knowing the difference between a gas pump and a compressed natural gas pump.
Right. It is labeled as a CNG pump, but there's also a little training unit they have to go through to be able to use the pump. Won't let you operate it if you haven't completed the training. Anyone that's used it with their vehicle before will be able to come up and just go ahead and use it, but otherwise you wouldn't be able to use the pump. Because there is a special fitting, it won't fit in like a regular gas engine or the nozzle.
And if I could, I've used them before. Also, not only that, but in order for the system to even release gas, you have to have it connected and screwed to the vehicle, connected, and then coupled to it before you can even start the system and run it. So it's not like you could go over there and flip a switch and it would start spraying or something. It's very controlled in that way.
Just a question about
Yes, sir.
the fueling time on the buses or a tractor, for example. What is the what's the typical fueling time for?
I'd probably run around 15, 20 minutes. It does vary with the pressure on the system because the system will ramp up and down. But as long as it's running at normal pressure, it's probably about 15 minutes.
Not a really fast flow rate.
Well, that's for a large like semi tank,
right.
so that's
150 gallon
Yeah.
or 200.
yeah. So it's equivalent to that.
Is there enough capacity at the site to handle the school district if they decided to start converting?
Yes, we are bringing a new main down Maple to serve the site, so it'll be served with a new high-pressure gas main. There's also space on there to add additional compressors if need be. So, this thing really took off, and MTA got twice as many buses. The school district rolled up, we could add another compressor and, expand the capacity from there.
Question, can you explain again the future paving area and what, you anticipate, why you're sort of holding that in reserve for some future use?
The way that driveway is kind of laid out now, it's shared with the neighboring property. It'd be hard for a large vehicle to make the turns and get in and out. As long as we reconfigure the drive the way it's submitted to MDOT, which looks like should be approved, we wouldn't need that paving. If it was left the way it is now, just to be able to swing a large vehicle around, you might get stuck in there if you didn't have that paving to turn on. So it's really turning space.
So you would need that entire area potentially to be paved in order to
Yeah,
do
it would be really to swing a semi-truck is what would drive it. Otherwise, if the drive moves like it's supposed to, the semi-truck can pull right in one drive and back out the other. It'd be fine. Our intention is not to pave that if possible.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. So the source of the gas that you're compressing, is that running through the current existing underground infrastructure?
Yes. There'll be a new main, like I said, brought down, but it runs through the existing systems to get to that.
Okay, so the new main is going to make sure that the existing users won't experience a decrease in pressure and
Yes,
jeopardize that?
actually, the new main that's coming is a high-pressure main.
Okay.
So most of the existing users around here are using it at a lower pressure, so it won't affect them at all.
If I could also, next year we'll be doing phase 3 of the Saginaw Trail Pipeline, which moves the main transmission from essentially Clawson to Saginaw. It's rerouting around Burton. It is coming right through Grambling Township. It's going from about a 12 to 16-inch steel pipe to a 24-inch steel pipe. So much greater capacity, more safety, more reliability. We've already been meeting with the township officials about that. Mr. Manson will be hearing and seeing from us probably maybe about 6 months about that. But that'll be coming through Grambling Township next year.
Okay. Okay. You have another question or two? So the way this is laid out is that the entryway to, I think it's Creative Foam, which is just to the south of this.
Yep.
How's that deal work now? Does the current owner of the MTA site, do you let them use that driveway, or?
Yes, they do. They have an agreement with that.
Oh, and nothing's going to change?
Correct.
Okay. So as I see the way the equipment's laid out, basically the compressing stuff is in between the two filling islands.
That's correct.
Right? And I mean, I've seen before where we've tried to plant trees in areas that are kind of constrained like that between two huge concrete, basically, partitions, and they die.
There is a landscape strip on the outside.
Right.
So between the paving and the area where the compressors are, there's a green strip there.
Between the road and?
Between the island where the pumps are
Yep.
and the actual area where the compressors are, that's actually grass.
Yeah, right, I understand that, but I mean, I've seen boulevards before that have that type of distance, and the
Mr.
trees
Lloyd, could
just...
you bring up that landscape plan, please?
Unfortunately, I don't have that on here electronically. We may be able to figure it out by looking at this.
If we have it on the board, if you
Yeah,
don't see it on the board.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, much better.
Oh,
Thank you. Yeah. Point out where the plants are.
Yeah.
There you go.
right.
So essentially, it's a pattern area, that's all.
Yep. Right. So how far is it, that place where you're planning, that, exactly right, that distance in there?
That's about 12 feet.
Yeah, so, all right.
Well, these are shrubs.
Yeah, those are not.
Mr.
right.
Mis-
Yeah, these aren't.
Oh,
Are they, what
so
are
Mr. Yancho probably is the expert in this, and
Yes.
if he thinks they'll survive with the concrete all around it, then I would defer to your experience.
What are the plants being used, please?
There you go now.
Okay. They should work well.
All right. Right, then just the last question I have here is, I noticed in the parking space formula that we have, that there's, we're requesting or desiring a lot of parking spaces on this. But as I understand what this particular station is it basically has virtually no covered area. So I'm kind of wondering why we have, if the parking space has to do with this addition of this facility, or if it has to do with something else.
I can answer that. It has something, it does with something else. It isn't, the fact is that currently, as we sit here today, they don't have enough parking for the size of all the buildings they have.
But it is not related to this. Fine. Thank you.
Other questions? Anybody else want to speak?
This guy here, I think he came all the way from California, so.
It'll pay for his trip if he doesn't
I
speak.
remember the guy that was supposed to be here last time. He got hung up in the weather.
It almost
pattern,
happened
right?
again today.
Yeah, I remember that now. Okay.
Brandon Rapallo, 15061 Golandrina Street, Lake Elsinore, California. I guess I'll just give a quick resume. I'm a construction project manager. You mentioned UPS before. We're the main installer for UPS. We do about 10 to 12 stations a year for them. We just took over waste management. So we're actually looking at a site in Flint and in Grand Rapids to do a site next year for them.
Well, if I can interrupt for just a moment, you said you're doing sites for like UPS.
Exactly.
And I was asking the question, would UPS trucks, if they were retrofitted or manufactured that way, would they use this facility, or would they want their own refueling stations at their terminals?
It all depends on their budgeting for that year of how many stations they can put in that year. So ideally, they would like their own station. But like I said, we're their main installer. There's only one other installer that I know of. We only do 10 a year for them. So they've got thousands of sites. So as the years go along, they'll hopefully get them all up to it. But until that happens,
Well, as an example, I have no idea if UPS does have a facility out on Bristol Road, don't they? Yeah, so. Oh, that's, I guess, how can you folks, I'm looking at you collectively, convince somebody like FedEx or UPS that you've got a station right here, why would you want to have one at your terminal?
and that would put them off. If they had a lot of sites around them, then that would put off their decision to make their own site. They'd put it in a site that has no CNG in that area.
Sure, oh yeah, I understand.
So-
But in this case, we're gonna be fortunate and have a wonderful facility right here.
Exactly, so hopefully that holds them off and use this site.
I might add that we attempted to have a meeting at our facility about 4 years ago for interest, organizations with interest, and I think we had the cart before the horse. People had really thought we may play a role as they start transitioning their fleet. Until they get it transitioned, then they may do their own thing, but we'll see many of those, I think. And it could be a full role for us or partial.
I mean, I'm sitting here envisioning 30 UPS trucks, nose to tail or whatever, and waiting to refuel their vehicles here. I mean, I assume that's something you'd love to see, correct?
Yeah, better logistics than that.
Okay.
One at a time.
Okay,
And also, we built a station for Chrysler in Detroit, was that 2 years ago now?
okay.
So they're also using it for their parts delivery trucks. I know Frito-Lay is a huge CNG user, so I'm pretty positive they'll come around and use they don't build their own sites, so they use
Okay.
all public stations. And other advanced disposal we built in the Detroit state region as well. So we built about 3-4 stations in this area, so we're pretty familiar with it.
We have been in conversations with the county road commission, with the
Boy, they'd have a reason to come to Grand Blanc Township then. There you go. Would I say that out loud?
Other than that, any questions?
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Any other questions? Oh, this is the special land use public comment time, so we'll open it up for public comment. Anybody that wants to comment that hasn't already or is not part of the petitioner's party? Okay, we'll close public comment and bring it back into the planning commission. I was glad to see that you did spend some time and come up with some green space kind of work and landscaping and that. Because I could see public driving down the road, and then next thing we know is, you know, why do we have missiles alongside the road, the white condensers, tanks?
One thing I'd like to add, if I can, is that our reason for moving over to Maple Road is to, address the amount of traffic and doing it much safer. And it became apparent to me in dealing with the city of Burton Road, and then step on the property, we're in your jurisdiction. And it's gonna be our intention right on the corner of Maple and Dorr to put in one of those nice walls that says welcome to Grand Blanc, as that's your northern.
Right. Terrific. That's
We'd like to
terrific.
hold you to that one.
Yeah, that's terrific.
You heard it. It's down.
He's got a couple of plans that he could show you. What they
Someone asked me that, and I said, our part of this is not right at the corner, so.
Well, you could do the landscaping around the sign that says welcome to Grand Blanc.
Township.
I would say I pay my tax dollars. Mr. Sears or someone.
Very good. Okay, so we're gonna split this up, Mark, right? So we'll do the special land use first. For a motion.
Make a motion to approve special land use SLU 18-002 as presented.
Second.
Mr. Virgil? Oh, you? Mr. Van Der? Okay.
Discussion for a second?
Sure.
So, as part of the package, Mr. Lloyd prepared a May 31st special site plan review, special land use document, and then there was a subsequent parking amendment published on June the 5th.
Right.
Can we, would you be amenable to your motion to referencing those two documents?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think that would be more relevant to the site plan, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
site plan,
special land
yeah.
use is just whether
Okay.
this is a communal land.
Yep,
That's fine.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
officer,
Thank you, Ms.
basically.
Colder. Yep.
Okay, so the motion on the table, Mr. Yancho, and seconded by Mr. Van Dersky to approve special land use 18-002. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries seven to nothing. 7-0. And now we have the final site plan review for the MTA site. Are there any other questions other than Mr. Mansour's comment?
I have a
Fair
question about the landscaping requirement as well.
Okay.
Want me to go ahead with that?
Yes.
Or- Oh, okay. Yeah, in Mr. White's review, he indicated that our zoning ordinance would require 14 trees, given the requirement that one canopy tree per 30 linear feet of frontage, 433 feet of frontage, 14 trees are required. The proposed site plan only has, as I recall, 4 trees, so obviously quite a bit short. I think, I don't have the zoning ordinance in front of me, I think we have some discretion if for some reason the contours or whatever, the plan would not, accommodate that required number of trees, but I would like some explanation as to why we can't do more trees, because we're way
Well,
short.
You have the discretion to do that, and so the site plan the site has been there, and it's got a lot of grown trees now, mature trees. So, you know, the question is, and what you have before you is whether or not you agree or believe that that Dort Highway area ought to have more trees in order for it to have the kind of appearance that you think it ought to. And we have the discretion to apply that ordinance because we have an existing site. And you don't have to add all of the landscaping and be exact in accordance with our ordinance. You do have some discretion. So if, you know, and I haven't had this discussion with the applicant, although they're aware of this fact. They know that the landscaping ordinance with a strict application of it would require 14 trees. I haven't heard an objection from the applicant in regards to that.
I'd appreciate then a comment from the applicant as to what you think you would be able to do in terms of additional trees and where they might go in order to, in view of the landscaping requirement. Would it be along, I mean, you've got that area that says future paving. Is that part of the problem that would interfere with planting more trees along the Dort Highway, or?
We did, would probably be planted in line with where they are shown on the plan already. Basically, because if we did expand, we'll pull the paving lines out.
Okay, show me where you're referring to. Oh, okay. So, do you have any problem with putting additional trees in there? I mean, would that be a?
The only concerns would be as long as we maintain sightlines for vehicles entering that. From a safety standpoint, that would be, other
Sure.
than that, no, there would be no issue.
So do you want to offer
So-
that up as part of the process?
No, maybe not.
Well,
Maybe not 14.
maybe not 14, but I'm saying as a general rule, zoning ordinance would require 14, but unless, you know, there's some reason why that would not be feasible or desirable, you know, if you've got some good reason why not, or maybe Mr. Yancho has some opinion on this as well. But normally, I mean, we like to see trees, I mean, that's why we have that in the zoning ordinance, to, you know, add more trees and, rather than,
I mean, we have, 4 shown here to add 4 more
yeah,
Yeah,
on the site.
2 or
that might,
3 more, maybe 4 more.
Oh, you're talking about it here, see, yeah, these do exist, are you talking about?
Yes, yes.
yeah.
See, the thing that these fine gentlemen are talking about is exclusive to this area they're leasing.
Yeah.
We're not talking about the rest of the site. The only
No.
reason 14 trees is a number is because we're going up here 200 feet, and we're coming down here 200 feet or so. You know what I'm saying? They're only talking about this. MTA would be responsible for
Right.
any trees on this other area. As a matter of fact, I'll have to work out the deal on this. So if what you're talking about is just having to maybe add some additional trees directly in front
Yeah.
of the area that they're doing, then I know they can put that in, and I know they can do a great job of putting, additional landscaping in there.
Okay.
And we could definitely get at least a couple more trees for sure, and probably some additional color out there.
And we might be able to, add something here, a few trees in front, along this area.
Yeah.
For the record, based on your question, I would suggest that your motion include that they bring back to the director modified landscape plan to reflect the discussion at the meeting.
Okay,
Does that work?
yeah, that'll work, yeah,
Okay. For administrative review with
of additional landscaping along.
Mr. Lloyd?
On Dort Highway,
Highway.
yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Brown.
though, I think regarding that, I'd like to maybe have an idea, not an idea, specifics in terms of what species, and again, Mr. Yancho is the expert here on this area. This is I would consider Dort Highway a pretty high-traffic area there. Do you have any recommendations, Mr. Yancho, that you would send back with the MTA folks as to how they would dress this area up with vegetation that's gonna be long-lasting?
Well, I would suggest a variety of different
Right.
species of trees.
Mm-hmm.
And without knowing what the soil's like, it's difficult to make those recommendations, quite honestly.
Okay.
I want species function and survivability and so on is dependent on the soil type more than anything else. I do have a comment on the trees along Dort Highway, however. I carry a CDL license. I drive big trucks, and it's a lot different driving a big truck than it is a small car. When we think of large canopy trees as they get bigger, people driving an automobile can see under those branches. People driving a semi-truck or a bus, even a dump truck, they can't see because those large canopy trees are in their vision. So I'm sure these gentlemen are going to take good care, as well as Mark, to make sure that we don't put species of trees that'll eventually interfere with the vision of drivers. But I'd be happy to assist if they need my services or want with.
Mr. Chair, I want to point out too, as I recall, the zoning ordinance has a list of some preferred species and
Yes,
some
it does.
prohibited species, so there's some guidelines there too you could take a look at.
Are we sure you tried to favor native species too?
Yeah, and
we have
we promote native
List
species,
of
certainly.
those to stay away from and those to.
One thing I may add is that, you know, in years past, we built buildings and put in, had a landscape and put in by the contractor, only to have species die.
Yeah,
That's exactly right.
We hired a master gardener, and we have junior master gardeners, and through that program, we can do some great things now, because it's part, it's like a building, you have to maintain it, and she is a master gardener, and does a phenomenal job, and grows nursery, and grows many things, so we can work together.
Very good. That's great. Mark, you've got all that?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for the support.
Good, because I'm not going to try to repeat it in a motion.
Just a question, I guess, to Mr. Yancho. I assume maybe a mix of deciduous as well as conifers and that sort of stuff, or?
Well, I think conifers especially need to stay well back from the driveways and
Okay.
the road. And if we're gonna use, you know, we have to think about salt, Dort Highway.
Right, exactly.
Gets a lot of high-speed traffic, and so airborne salt is a consideration. So, because that's, you know, the wind direction seems to be mostly out of the west and out of the north. And so when those vehicles kick that salt up in the air, we don't want it to affect those evergreens.
Sounds like it's not your first rodeo.
Been there.
I have all the confidence that it'll work out. Any other questions?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
Regarding the circulation of the buses, I know you mentioned the fact that Maple Road is Burton jurisdiction. I requested that you take a look, and is there going to be any objection from a standpoint of where this circulation pattern goes out to Maple Road? Will the city of Burton have any problem with the driveway going out there, even because it's coming from Blanc Township property?
I'm gonna take a shot at that. No.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
Other questions? I think it's pretty exciting. I'm going to take my car over there as soon as I can to try to gas up. Chair's looking for a motion.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that the Planning Commission approve, I guess it's the special SPR 1040.
Right.
Final site plan review for True Star Energy, MTA site, with the additions that we discussed here in terms of landscaping, additional landscaping at the approval of the Director, Administration.
I'll support that motion.
There was another addition too, right?
Yeah.
Your original.
I was gonna ask, do we need to deal with the parking
Oh, yeah.
Parking.
requirements?
You mean the, I'm sorry,
The two notations that you had in your,
the addendum that I
Yes.
submitted?
Yes.
Oh, well, what that does, thank you. What that does is actually really opens the door for us, a lot more than we maybe thought we ever had the authority to. What I discovered in going through the zoning ordinance was that the planning commission has discretion to grant deviations from the parking regulations, either up or down. Either way, it doesn't matter. What we've done is we've sent some things to the zoning board of appeals in the past, but further analysis, if you look at the addendum I sent you, I copied those sections and I highlighted and pointed out the fact that these sections do in fact provide the planning commission with those with that discretion. The areas I underlined, for example, the one that looking at this evening is the planning commission may adjust the parking requirement based on anticipated volume of parking demand. Well, you know, when I'm seeing that and I realize that, you know, I haven't been here a long time, but I've read a lot of ordinances and I realize that, boy, this gives the planning commission a lot of flexibility with regards to projects. So, you know, I didn't take that lightly and I didn't take it at face value. I looked at other sections and I got a hold of the township attorney, simply because that's the appropriate thing to do. And I verified that with him, that this planning commission does have that authority. So I think what it does is it behooves us to take a look at that and make sure that that's the kind of authority that you want now that you have it. I mean, I know you all haven't had a chance to really take a good look at it, but from my perspective, I think it does a great service to the community as well as the development community who might come in with a project. Instead of them having to wait 30 to 60 more days and spend $1,000 on a ZBA application, the planning commission can deal with those issues right here. And that's going to help, you know, move projects along, but also do the right thing. You know, it doesn't need to go to the ZBA. We don't need another public hearing and a process. The applicants have the ability to get that granted by the planning commission. It was just a great discovery, and when I did find it, I put that addendum together after I got with the attorney. Wanted to make sure that everything was fine, and the application of the zoning ordinance and the parking requirements to this particular project. And so we did a good job, I think, of taking care of that. So we have addressed it, and it's explained. I hope I've done a decent job of explaining it, but it's also explained in that addendum. Is there a particular question beyond what I just?
Mr. Mansford, does that solve your?
Yeah, I was just, yeah, I mean, the question was here, it didn't appear that the filling station part of this had anything to do with parking spaces, and so
Yeah,
it looks like
that's
the
right.
requirement here as, requirement by the ordinance is 129.
Right.
It looks like the amount being proposed is 159.
Right.
And, I mean, is that really, I mean, does that fit with your needs?
Could I-
Seems like a lot.
Before you do this, let me, that's a great question, but I would like to respond because of my analysis, and I don't want to lose the thought that I just had. With regards to that, it's excessive as on its face, there's no doubt about that. And so the point is, the planning commission has the discretion. I've worked with the folks at MTA, and the feedback that I've gotten, worked with Corey, and there's another gentleman who's helping to design that parking area. I've walked through this with them, and as you'll see, and thank you very much for pointing that out, because what I would like you to do is, as a part of the condition of approval, to address that issue, thank you very much. I would like you to add a condition that indicates that once they're up and operating, when they get their permission to operate, 6 months from them, they come back to us and identify their parking needs, because right now they're gonna go through a transition. They're gonna build that 110 parking spaces out towards Maple. The 42 that are in front of the building, give or take, those are existing. That parking area needs to be fixed. They're planning on rehabbing that. My expectation is that in the future, unless they can show us and document that they need all 159 spaces, they'll need to reduce the number of spaces in front of their administrative office. That's got to come back before you. So thank you for bringing that point up. And please identify that and list it as a condition of approval that after 6 months, at the 6-month point from them commencing operations, that they'll need to bring back the documentation supporting keeping the surplus parking spaces. Thank you for bringing that up.
thought that's where you were going with it before.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think I made the motion, right?
Yes.
So I'll add this amendment to it to bring back the parking space requirement after 6 months.
Great. Can you,
Let's address that. My name is Corwin Matthews, 4711 Glenbrook, Flint, Michigan. With the resurfacing of the current parking lot, this is all when it comes to MTA, this is all one big project. So basically, we're doing the new parking lot off of Maple Road, and we're doing that first, and then we're gonna resurface our current parking lot. But this is all one big one project. So if we say, after 6 months, the construction is all one big project. It's not just, 6 months, we're basically back into like November. So I'd like to have the committee look at that too, so.
Comment, if I'm reading this correctly, you can go up to 20% beyond what's required without any special approval at all.
That's
And so an extra, that 20% would bring you 129 plus 20% of that, when I calculated it a little while ago, it brought you up to, I think, like 154 right there.
right,
So
it's very close.
if you, were worried about, okay, now they're telling us to
Yeah.
get rid of 6 parking spaces. If you reduced if you just put in, I think it's 154 or is it 150, you'd be within the requirements and you wouldn't even have to
And
get permission.
and one other thing, thank you for that. One other thing is we have not just office personnel there. Most of these people will be drivers, and they're not actually going to be stationed at the actual facility. They'll be on the road. So we got we'll have full-time drivers. We'll have part-time drivers. So we do need to have that space where people come in, temp drivers,
Right.
sub drivers, that they need to come and go. So we do need those extra spaces.
One thing I might point out is where you see the building with the little arrow, the back of the property, that was a new building. It was built about 3 years ago. I'm working in Washington, that building there. I'm working in Washington to build a building twice that size, because that will be the end of the transition. To move all of our vehicles and drivers will need that parking lot. And we went from 450 employees in 2010. We're now approaching 700. And by next year, we'll be close to 800. Many of them will be here and they'll need to drive their cars there.
So, yeah, they'll come to the site, park their car,
Yes.
leave it there for the duration of their shift while they're driving.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we already have that going on with regional, and we have 30 regional routes today, and those drivers are around the clock 7 days a week. We're gonna increase that to 50 regional routes, so that's part of the reason we're adding extra space.
If I might. What I'm hearing is that they may very well come back to us in 6 months and say, we need to keep all of that. And if that's the case, all they need to do is document and show us that they need it. And the commission, it'll be a simple process. If they come back and say, yeah, we really don't need it, but we need it for the future, then we can deal with that issue. But right now, what we have is a proposal to build 9 spaces over the maximum that they could have, or whatever the number is. Maybe it's only 5 spaces over the maximum, but it's still over, and we got to deal with it. And I'm saying, let's have them come back in 6 months after they get operating and tell us how they're doing and what they might need. If the interest is to do it after a year, that's fine too, Corey. I'm just using a time period.
Okay.
I understand your point about November.
Yeah.
We'll be submitting a grant request. We should know within 6 months if we're
Oh.
gonna receive that. So if we do, we need to build that.
Let's keep it at 6. My suggestion.
Okay.
you want to leave it where it is?
I got,
Yeah.
I'd leave it where it is. Is that okay? We can work with that.
Okay,
right?
leave it where.
All right, so we have a motion on the table by Mr. Mansour. Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Brown? Thank you. Okay, second of Mr. Brown, so site plan, let's see, SPR 1040 for approval with conditions as noted. those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? You're on your way, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Yep. Safe travels back
Yep,
to
thank you.
California, especially if you're the guy that's doing the project management on this one, because you're an important guy.
And you don't have to leave right now, the really riveting stuff is now committee reports. It's really exciting stuff. So you may want to,
Take a 2-minute break so that anybody that wants to leave can.
Okay.
Except for
Mr. Brown.
any of our members.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
No, it isn't. Good luck, looking forward to seeing everything come together. We'd love it.
Let us know. Pick us
Hey,
up.
we might want to use you to tour us around our town. I'm going to keep you in mind. We're looking at doing some land use studies.
We can legally do that?
Yeah. For another governmental agency?
Or they're fussy about it, this would qualify.
Yeah.
We do it in the city and
Correct. Yeah, it's a good way for us to get folks out to take a, collectively to be together and see things. Right on, that would be great. We might have to do that.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Yeah,
Good night now.
kind of a cool opportunity.
Nothing from the township, excuse me.
Oh, that's why you're packing up, huh?
Nothing.
Nothing happening at the,
Nothing from them to the
Good
planning.
night,
oh,
guys.
Thanks, Al, see ya.
Don't give a shit.
Oh. That was his report.
His report was nothing. All right, so that brings us to planning and zoning, Mr. Lloyd, which you already gave us a good little spot about our parking. which
Yes,
is
indeed. Thank you guys
Very much
for,
appreciated.
and thanks for bringing it back up. I'm over here, not always having everything in mind. I like to keep a lot of notes, but I do truly appreciate you bringing that issue back up because that 6-month condition, I think, was important. So thanks. I'm glad that it did keep coming up. As far as other things go, we're working on some streamlining efforts here. I might have mentioned it before, where we're trying to make sure that as we move projects through, we're not doing things to slow it down. So effectively, we're working towards streamlining our permitting process. We're mapping out our processes. The township's in the process of purchasing some new technology that'll help us to manage the plans that come in, these large sets of plans that you have. We have a program that'll manage those. It'll index those plans, and it'll also allow us to attach all the information from our planning and other land use decisions on those plans and those properties. So it'll make sharing information a lot better and easier amongst departments and for the public, as well as the development community out there who's looking to find out what the status is of their project. So it's one of the things we're doing administratively. I know, in my talks with Dennis, I know he's still trying to find ways to cobble some dollars together to help, put a budget recommendation together for the master plan. I know he's got a number of other things that he's also looking at the budget on. And otherwise, things are moving along pretty good. We're fixing a few things and making some adjustments. Trying to get together with the commission. I'll remind those of you who maybe haven't gotten back in touch with me about getting with me and scheduling a time to come in and spend a half an hour, 15 minutes or so, just kind of getting to know each other, but understanding maybe a little bit more about what you might want from me and my thoughts and how I do things. Meeting with Dolores tomorrow morning. I've met with Joe today, and I've met with Dan. So if there are any others who haven't gotten a hold of me, please do, and we'll follow up. But otherwise, that's it, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank
Sure.
you.
question?
Yes.
Any updates on Tech Village? Have we gotten any, interest in?
There's the same level of interest, and I think some of that, we're kind of heightening that a little bit because we're excited about the project. So, but there's folks out there who are truly interested in that piece of property, and the owners are interested in selling it. So it's just a matter of this thing coming together. There's pretty consistent interest in that property. It's a big undertaking, though. It's going to take a little while just to put the pieces together. So,
Just wanted to give
but
us.
yeah, interest, definitely a lot of interest. There's a few large properties in town that I get calls on. People have a lot of interest in, just so you know. Yep.
I wanted to add too, I have enjoyed the packets that we've seen site plan review packet that we saw today was very well put together. I like the idea, like I told you, Mark, of the conditions
Yeah.
page that we put in from preliminary to, and I would like that same kind of thing with conceptual, where we go from
Okay.
conceptual to preliminary.
Okay, sure.
Like we talked about tonight with
Right.
the Hilton.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. It seems very well organized. I think, I'm pretty pleased.
Thank you.
I would agree.
I'll pass that on to Maria. She'll appreciate it.
Okay. Well, we gotta keep her around for a couple more weeks,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
Noticed he said that after Al left.
Yes.
Okay.
Zoning Board of Appeals, Mr. Brown.
We've got some really exciting stuff.
Oh, can't be decks. We fixed that.
That's true, yeah, no more decks, that's for sure. At the last ZBA meeting, we had just one case on it, and it was a case at a private residence on Burning Tree in Warwick Hills. The petitioner was looking to have approval for an in-the-ground pool, and the Zoning Board of Appeals felt that it was worth granting the request for the variance. So that was done. And then, secondly, I think maybe all of you may know Mark Palazzolo. If not, I've been working with Mark for a long time on the Zoning Board of Appeals. And Mark, depending on how you want to look at it, tendered his resignation or retirement, whichever you want to look at. Mark is moving out of the township to a new home in Fenton Township, I think it is. So he tendered his resignation at our last meeting, and I just want to let you know that he was a wonderful colleague on the Zoning Board of Appeals, and he took his job very, very seriously.
He did.
So he'll be missed.
Yes,
Now, I
he
understand we do have some appointees, Mr. Lloyd, to the
Yes.
ZBA, but very, very frankly, I don't remember who the folks are.
I don't either. I don't know, did they appoint a ZBA member already?
I think they did.
Okay. I know we have
Well,
You know-
there's some homework.
got some homework, thank you, yeah.
Okay. Well, Mr. Pal, I agree with you. Mr. Palazzolo is a very dedicated and very hard worker for us.
If I might, Mr. Brown, would you like me to mention those, or you got?
Sure,
it?
no, go right ahead.
Yeah, I know that, I should point out that the next zoning board of appeals meeting, we do have 3 items. The Fairfield Inn, new building going up on Holly Road. They want to modify their signs a little bit. They're on their wall signs. They want them to be a little bigger and an extra one. It's a small little extra sign, but the other signs, they're asking for a bit, quite a bit of extra signage. There's a Pick and Lick over here. You guys know about it? Anybody know that business, ice cream place? Is it?
Know it well.
What's the road? Is it Maple?
It's on Maple Road.
It is Maple,
In the
yeah.
township.
Yep.
I can't remember the couple, but they're just delightful.
Yeah.
And they have that open, and they
It's,
sell ice cream all summertime,
Right.
and I sadly go there way more than I should be going there. But they're great, yeah, I do know them.
they're going to the ZBA to get a temporary use permit for
Yep.
that? And then
Seasonal.
there's a dentist office, and I'm sorry, I don't have the address, but there's a dentist office that has an existing monument sign on Saginaw, and he wants to incorporate a message board into that. And as a result of that, he'll have excessive signage, so he's gonna need a variance in order to accomplish that. I had to deny his request, so he's appealing that. And if he gets a variance, we'll see. That's it.
Site plan review, Mr. Gellings is not here, but what we saw since the last meeting, we saw tonight, and it was a conceptual plan for the Hilton 2 Home 2. Which is a boutique-type hotel that will go next to, on Holly Road, between the Taco Bell and the Comfort Inn.
Yes.
And the,
Behind the Taco Bell, or?
no,
adjacent
right
to it.
next to it.
Next to it?
Yep,
Immediately
and
south.
that little strip
Is
of
there
land
room?
that's in the middle
How
between
can they
those.
fit? Okay,
Yeah, and it fits. It's
It
about the
does?
size of the Taco Bell.
okay.
I forget how many units, they haven't really brought that in
82.
yet. but-
85.
Somebody corrected me and said
85.
85 though once. Oh, it was you.
Oh,
Well, in addition though, regarding their request for a PUD.
Right. The Fairfield Marriott and the existing Comfort Inn are a PUD, and they're asking to have this piece of property that they also own added into that PUD. So that, truthfully, so that they could take advantage of the green space that's off to the east of all, or west of all that. Because otherwise it would be pretty difficult from a building coverage standpoint to make anything work. We sent them off with it was a conceptual plan that they gave us, and we sent them off with a list of things, and to be quite frank, I can't think of a better use to be in there. Especially with weddings and open houses and all the things that take place in the township.
Yeah.
They have them centralized so that we have different price points. High-end price point, medium price point, and then Comfort Inn type of price point for members of the community to utilize with their out-of-town guests. So,
If I may build on what you were saying. Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman. We spent pretty much from 5:30 till about 5 to 7 with them, and letting them know that they really need to do their homework to demonstrate a need, and that there is going to be a benefit for the residents of the community by having the Hilton facility in there, as well as obviously the Fairfield Inn.
right,
Stories are they proposing?
Three.
Mr. Chairman, mention the eye doctor.
yes,
Final
that was
site
the other one
plan.
we saw, was the final site plan for,
Vitreoretinal,
thank you. I would never get that out.
just south of, north of
It's on
Cook, there, just north of Cook Road.
Yeah, on that
South
kind
of
of
the-
point property
Yeah.
kind of thing.
South of the new dentist office, that's just north of Cook Road, on Holly.
And they received a final
It's a
site
cool
plan
building.
today.
It's gonna be nice looking over there. Doing a good job.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Yancho has an
The meeting date of July 5th. Does that present a problem to anyone?
Yes.
only
Yeah.
one.
Is it the day after the 4th?
Yes. Do you have a full agenda pack for that?
I don't have
yet?
anything. I mean, there's nothing scheduled, there's no public hearing scheduled, and I don't have any items in the queue that need to come before the commission. There may be some items for the site plan review, but we try to work out even different dates on occasion
Yeah,
with the
we-
site plan review.
That would,
If we needed to, we could, but I don't have items for the planning commission. And Maria, she mentioned that, normally the commission would, just cancel that meeting on July 5th. Now, if something comes up in between, we'll call you guys and figure some stuff out, but if you want, you could take a motion and cancel the meeting tonight.
thank you, Mr. Bandersky, for bringing that up.
Well, maybe we should just wait and see if there are any items, and then if there aren't any items, then you can just send out an email and say,
We only have a week or two to wait till our deadline for anything comes in anyway, so if you'd like, I'll send you an email and then we could send out the cancellation notice, we'll confirm it. So if what I'm getting from the commission, they'll do it this way, so I don't have to worry about anything funny procedurally. If what I'm getting is you're saying if we don't have any items, cancel the meeting.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, and I'll do that and we'll notice you.
If we don't have any significant items.
Okay,
Yes.
sure, I
If
got you.
somebody is gonna lose their entire process by
I see.
by,
See, I'll try to apply the filters.
very good, and thank you, and with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
okay.
Thank you.